Hi, my name is Danny, and this is Thursday on Pagan Perspective. I'm subbing for Yucca again this week, and we're discussing Rewilding Witchcraft by Peter Gray. So like many of the hosts earlier this week have mentioned, this article can be a bit difficult to get through, and it does seem a little disjointed on what theme or message it's actually presented. I'm going to kind of focus on the climate change theme. I'm not going to really address the issues at the beginning of the article, just because I'm kind of unclear as to whether I really understand what the author was attempting to say there. I think if you read this article and look at some of the sources that the author includes, and if you have any understanding about peak moments like peak oil and peak energy, you probably have a decent understanding about the dire circumstances that our world is facing right now. I know that when I read the Limits to Growth, the 30-year update, which I believe is one of the cited resources for this article, it was pretty depressing and a little alarming. The 30-year update of the Limits of Growth shows a pretty dramatic story using statistics, graphs, math, other modeling programs to show what sort of damage we've done to our environment through our political and environmental choices. Particularly interesting, I thought, was the fact that 20 years makes a huge difference in the models, meaning that if we had taken some action that we're only now just kind of debating, like more dramatically limiting CO2 in the atmosphere, people would see an increased standard of living, and the peak moment where collapse would happen is pushed off pretty dramatically. So the actions we take today can have a huge impact 20 years from now and in future generations. Whether you see climate change creating a total economic collapse, or whether you just see it as a problem that we should address or at least, research more, I think that there are a lot of things that pagans, in particular earth-centered pagans, can be doing to kind of be leaders in that movement. And I think that ultimately Rewilding Witchcraft, this article, was trying to kind of motivate people to at least think about climate change more, if not do something about it. The article touches a lot on the fact that there is no wilderness left, mass extinction, and kind of the death that we will be seeing all around us, that we are seeing all around us, and how that impacts our practice today. I thought it was interesting, though, that in touching on those topics, there were a few seemingly contradictory phrases. Towards the end of the article, maybe in like the 11th or 12th paragraph or so, there was a phrase, quote, "There is no magic to fix this," meaning that we have no magic to change climate change. And then towards the very end, right before he talks about elders, he says, quote, "Witchcraft has never been passive in the force of power. Our witchcraft will not be silenced," end quote. Now, those seem kind of like they're talking about two different things. I would say that maybe on an individual scale, there's no spell or single action that one person can take which would change the course of our planet. On the other hand, if all of pagans, or a larger group of people in the mainstream culture, got together and made change and advocated for change, we could make a big difference. I certainly agree with the author on the fact that pagans could be louder or maybe a bit more involved in the environmental process. But I didn't agree with the author when he said we had elders who had failed us on this front. For me, I see elders like Starhawk and Dave the Bard who are doing real, powerful, long-term action against climate change. Starhawk is involved in permaculture and does earth activist training. All of her books are really focused on the earth and how we can affect the changing climate. Even her works of fiction, like The Fifth Sacred Thing, are all about how we can use magic to change and make big differences in climate change or after the quote-unquote collapse. Many of the other hosts touched on how the article sounds really depressing and kind of hopeless, and that focusing on death, while important, might not necessarily be the best inspiration for moving the community and real change forward. In my opinion, hope is always a better motivator than anger or desperation. To help in inspiring all of you to maybe learn a little bit more about climate change or to become a louder activist or more involved in fighting against climate change, I've included lots of links in the description. So there's a bit about Starhawk's Earth's activist training. There's also links to some anti-fracking movements, including the Warriors Call, which is an organization that works with pagans worldwide to stop fracking. Because music is so powerful and I think really resonates with a lot of pagans, I also have a link over here to one of my favorite new agey folky bands, Nako and Medicine for the People, and the song I think will help inspire you to stay strong and, work for peace and good climate change programs. I thought this was a really interesting topic, so thanks for having it on Pagan Perspective. I think even though the article is a little difficult to kind of get your teeth into and gnaw into and really digest, it's certainly an interesting read and you might be surprised by what you take away from it. In the comments below, I would love to hear how you stay inspired when you're out being an activist or, using stringed bags at your grocery shopping or biking to work, however you fight against climate change. Thanks for watching Pagan Perspective. You will see me next week on Subs Week, and as always, may you find peace in the sacred grove.